Hello and welcome to episode number 8. Finally, I'm back on the farm. And this week we're going to be looking at the dramatic changes the farm's been through over the past 10 weeks I haven't been able to be here. Luckily, it's easy to perform safe social distancing in an area like this. Having been in lockdown at home for the last 10 weeks, I've seen spring come and go in my garden and from my daily walks. Wildflowers have emerged, the blossoms have appeared and faded, with fruit now beginning to grow in their place. Many young animals have ventured out for the first time, and the insects are out in force, with hedgerows humming with activity. The fields are packed with chirping crickets, and the air is full of butterflies and bees busily moving between flowers, all a sure sign that summer is around the corner. Each week I've seen footage from Natalie of the farm's own seasonal transformation, but I'm very excited to finally be able to see these changes in person. So what better place is there than to start in the brook itself? And just look how green it is. The trees are full of leaf and there are impressive foxgloves on stand throughout the woodland. The next thing is I can't quite believe just how much the water level has dropped. It's drastically lower than the last time I was here, and this is down to all that really hot weather we recently had. This hot weather has also caused this to occur, a landslide. It's dried out the bank, causing all the substrate to slip into the stream, altering the course of the water. How extraordinary is this? The last time I was here, this whole area was completely submerged underwater, and now there's barely any left. Just to think that the stream carried this log down during the storms we had a few months ago. It's so hard to believe that when there's such little water left in the brook. There used to be a roaring waterfall, and now that's not even existent either. So I'm really curious to find out whether this is the case across the farm. I think a good thing to do is to go and check the ponds to see if they've also had a substantial loss of water. So I wasn't expecting to see this. The last time I was here, this pond was overflowing and now it's nearly bone dry. And this is due to evaporation. This is where the sun heats the water, giving the molecules extra energy to be able to dissipate into the air. And it's one of the leading reasons why the brook also runs dry. And the fact that the farm sits on clay also adds to this. In the heat, large cracks form, and the water in the pond then is lost and drains through the ground. And I'm really intrigued to find out if this is the case across the farm. So it's not looking good. This pond is also completely bone dry. Let's take a look at the next and see if that's also the case. Thank goodness, this one is still full of water, and that's due to it sitting on top of a natural spring. As I walk around the edge, I can see that it is still teeming full of life. There are loads of dragonflies and damselflies flying about busily, and there are many pond skaters skittering about the surface of the pond. The other thing that strikes out to me is that the grass is just moving constantly, and that's due to all these tiny emerged frogs that I mentioned last week. So I'm going to try and catch one of these for you guys, just so that you can see how small and how cute they are. So let me just see if I was able to catch one. And there we have it. A perfect miniature adult version of a frog. I mean, just look how tiny he is. How super cute as well. You could sort of see he's still got a little bit of his long tail on the back, but he'll lose this in the next couple of weeks when he's absorbed all the nutrients within it. So I'm going to put him back though so he can hop back into the pond. And there it goes, back into the thick vegetation for cover. So isn't it great to see that the pond is still teeming full of life? Not just of animals, but also the vegetation on the surface of the pond and surrounding it. And during my walks back on the farm today, that's the thing that stood out to me the most, is just how much the vegetation has transformed during my absence. So it's not often you get a chance to be able to sit in a wild meadow like this, and it's just great. I'm surrounded by a hum of insect noise, and I can see numerous trees in full of leaves. And I mean, last time I was here, they were bare. So it's dramatic to see that change. It is sad that I've missed the blossom, because personally for me, that's one of the greatest indicators that spring's here. So it's lovely that Natalie was able to film this and provide footage for me to be able to see this within the series. However, I can see that the elderflower is in blossom, so at least I've been able to see at least one tree showing its beautiful flowers. So unfortunately, wild meadows are now a rare habitat in the UK, and this is because they've been replaced by arable farmland. For example, fields to graze livestock, or also fields growing monoculture of crops such as corn and wheat. So it's nice to see that Carolyn and Clive encourage the meadows to go wild, which provides extra habitats for many numerous small animals, as well as improving biodiversity. Some of the meadows are cut for hay, whereas others are left all year to go fallow through the winter, thus providing habitats for many animals the whole year round. So the cut hay is used to feed all the animals on the farm, from the sheep to the horses, and even these rare breed large black pigs, who during the hot weather dug themselves out a wallow next to their water. They'll tip the water into the wallow and create a nice cool mud bath for themselves. Well, many of us have had to put life on hold since lockdown started. Farm life has had to continue, with lambs being born, 2 new beehives being installed, sheep shearing going ahead as usual, and even 2 new piglets arriving. I'm so pleased to be back here by the brook, and I can't wait to get out and explore what the farm has to offer in terms of flora and fauna. Over the next few weeks, I'll be conducting wildflower surveys, nighttime moth counts, new habitat constructions, and much, much more. Don't forget to hang around for wild encounters at the end of this episode. Hello and welcome to this week's instalment of Wild Encounters, where we can finally present it to you as we originally intended, and that's together. Obviously, being back on the farm for the first time this week, first thing I wanted to do is get in the pond and see how much life had changed within it.
And a couple of weeks ago, I thought I was extremely lucky by finding an eft, which is a tiny, tiny juvenile newt, essentially, baby newt. And I was boasting about it to Ben, and then Ben gets in there this week and fishes out about 10 straight away, so I felt slightly less lucky.
It's great to be able to see them in there. It means that the pond's extremely healthy and it's supporting a healthy ecosystem. But we also managed to find something I've never seen before, and that's freshwater clams, also known as fingernail clams, because they were the colour of fingernails, weren't they? And
the size of fingernails. They were absolutely tiny, and certainly not something I've ever seen in that pond before.
No, it was quite remarkable.
But we also saw lots of damselflies. You were able to catch a couple, which was quite impressive. And the most exciting, I think, was we saw a dragonfly emerging from its larval form, which we obviously talked about in the last episode of By the Brook. But amazing to see in person. Yeah,
I mean, I've never witnessed this in person. I've studied about it, and it fascinated me so much, which is why I wanted to do the last week's episode. But it was just truly mind-blowing to witness, and it happened so quickly. The nymph climbed out of the water in a trough, that's all it was in. Within 20 minutes, it was fully formed into an adult, and it flew off. Just
extraordinary.
Yeah, you know.
Never thought I would see that. So that was amazing. And in talking of insects as well, Top 10 with Ben this week is going to be looking at butterflies and moths. We'll be releasing that video on YouTube and Facebook later on in the week.
Yeah, it's a great time of the year to get out and see moths and butterflies, particularly day-flying species. James sent in this brilliant example of a scarlet tiger moth, and just look how beautiful this species is. And I implore for you to get out and try and find one yourselves, because you're not going to be disappointed, and they're really common to your garden.
Just amazing. We've also had the camera traps up, which is always interesting to see. We had them in the woods these last 2 weeks, and we've seen loads of rabbits, which are just adorable. We've also had a fox. Goes hand in hand with seeing rabbits.
And the lambs about. Did see another young fledgling as well, didn't we, on there? So.
Yes, so I saw a thrush. We managed to capture the same thrush, I think, with its fledgling, and it's feeding the fledgling, which is lovely. which is amazing because Liv sent in these photos of what I think are blue tits, and they're just fantastic photos, and these were just taken in her garden, so anyone can see this kind of behaviour wherever you are. And of course, a very common visitor to our camera traps is the grey squirrel, which is an introduced species and has effectively driven out the red squirrel, hasn't it? Which was native
it's
to
replaced
England.
it. It's outcompeted it and replaced it, unfortunately.
And they are fascinating to watch, and they do cause
Some of the camera trap footage is just great of them because
endlessly amusing.
they're humorous to watch anyway. But
It does cause me endless amunement. Going
you've
through
had
footage.
an even more impressive introduced / invasive species this week on the camera traps, haven't we? So
Absolutely, we saw a monkjack, which is a type of deer that is from China, I believe.
yeah, Eastern Asia.
It's one of those creatures that it's not particularly rare in this country, but in this area it's quite uncommon. I certainly have never seen one on the farm. I think the one on the camera trap is a female,
Yes, quite possibly.
as it is tuskless.
But all these introduced and invasive species we've been seeing, I think it leads on well that we should do an episode on introduced and invasive species. So that is what the next episode is going to be about.
So that episode will air 2 weeks from today, so please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also email us or get in touch via Facebook, and please send us your wildlife encounters,
Yeah,
because
we'd
we'd
love to see them. And if you have any trouble identifying anything as well, we'd be more than happy to do that. Natalie's particularly good with the wildflowers. I'll take the animals. So yeah, it's been another fascinating week of wild encounters. I've seen more this week due to probably being back on the farm, and it just shows how much there is here. So get out, find your own wild encounters and send them in to us.
Absolutely. And don't forget, look out for Top 10 with Ben later on in the week.